Good evening and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am DM Bloodworth, and as you can see, today I'm going to be giving you a quick glimpse into my Robert E. Howard library. And today I'm going to focus on pamphlets and newsletters. And these are just a few samples of what I have. I actually consider my library to be, quite extensive, probably well over 70 or more books, either directly written by Robert E. Howard or, books about him and his life and such. And this includes newsletters and pamphlets and, anthologies and the one or two full-length novels that he had written and various forms of his short stories as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump right into the pamphlets that that I'm going to show first. Now, why on an RPG review channel? And the reason why is that my role-playing game hobby was either inspired by my reading of Robert E. Howard's works in the late 1970s, or vice versa. I really don't remember which actually came first. Did I start playing D&D and then started reading Robert E. Howard's Conan series, or was it the other way around? And to be honest with you, I really don't remember. It's over 40 years ago. So. But it's his writing and his short stories are things that I draw upon for when I'm writing adventures for various game systems. And I've used it, I've used his inspiration in, Dungeons and Dragons or, Mythrog or Call of Cthulhu, which is a really easy connection to make. But I've used it throughout the years in the various games that I've played. And so it's something that I will certainly continue to do. And that includes what I'm going to show you today. So let me jump right into it and show you one of the oldest pamphlets that I do have. So let me just get to the right view. So here you have The Garden of Fear by Robert E. Howard. 25 cents originally when it was sold, and we'll go here and we can see it is very, very yellowed, the paper, but it's the binding and everything on this is really pretty pretty phenomenal. I mean, it still has that bounce that I look for. So let's take a deeper look into this. So, The Garden of Fear by Robert E. Howard. Stories of the bizarre and fantastic. So, the first story is by Robert E. Howard. The second story by L.A. Eschbach, who I'm actually not familiar with. So, this will be my first reading into this person's work. Obviously, H.P. Lovecraft comes up next. Miles Brewer, M.D., and David H. Keller, M.D. Kind of interesting. I'll be curious to see, if there's some connection to Robert E. Howard with these two individuals. It's kind of just struck me as being interesting that there's two medical doctors writing, short story, fantasy, or just fiction writing. So these stories were originally produced in 1934, copyrighted 1935, and the entire contents of this book is 1945. So, this book is old. It's probably one of the oldest books that I have in my entire collection, and it really is, a gem. Now, I paid $20 for this a couple of years back, and I've actually never never paged through it, never read it. So and I probably won't. What I'll do is I'll go and read these stories because all of these stories are in the public domain, and so you can go there online and read them for free, and thus not risk damaging the book itself. Uh, so, so the story is only about 17 or less or fewer pages long. So it is a fairly short story, and each of the stories runs about the same, about 20 or so pages long. That one brings us up to 32. H.P. Lovecraft stories going from page 33, all the way up to 38. So that's a real short one. The Mars Colonizers by Miles Brewer, MD. And that is also fairly short. So no illustrations in this. It's straight up, reading. And let's see, that one's a little bit longer. And then The Golden Bow. I think I've read this story before, The Golden Bow. So that will be something new for me, or perhaps not. And then that's it. So I'm going to leave this here. I'm going to repackage it up. The way that I keep these is I have them in I keep them in a comic book bag, and then with the acid-free poster board backing, just to keep it nice and solid. The other pamphlet that I have is Robert E. Howard's Two Against Tyre. Now, this book is not as old, but still very, very crisp. Heavyweight paper. It's 70-pound paper that it's printed on. So it's 1975 by Glenn Lord. This is published by Dennis McHaney from Memphis, Tennessee. And I emphasize that for a particular reason. So here, I just wanted to just show you something. And this is really the first time that I've actually opened up and taken this out. But I'm struggling to do it now. Let's switch views and I can show you this here. So I want to show you something with this, which just caught my interest. And I'm not sure if it's significant or not, but this one page here, let me get the camera. See this one page here? It's still connected. It's not, I guess when they cut the pages, this piece of paper just stayed intact, and I don't want to split it because this is originally how I have it, and so I'm going to leave it this way. So, but you can see there is a nice illustration on the inside of this, and I will get it back to that view so you can see it. But it really is an impressive illustration, and there's that tab that just hasn't given way yet. So I'm not going to press it. I'm going to leave it just as is. And we flip through. Here's another plate. Let's see. So the illustrations in this are really nice. I'm really impressed with them. SF. Let me go back to the beginning and see who the internal illustrations are made from. So from Steve Fabian. So Steve Fabian. So I'm going to take a look online and see what other things that he's actually worked on. But the reason why I brought up the publisher is there is some writing in this book. So Two Against Tyre is published in an edition of 1,500 copies. 600 copies of this booklet are printed on deluxe 70-pound paper, which this one is actually. And this is number 601. This is the publisher's file copy, and then signed Dennis McHaney. So this was the publisher's copy of it, number 601, but it's still the 70-pound, paper. And so, I'm really, really happy to have gotten this, this pamphlet and this particular one because of that fact that that is signed off by the, by the publisher, and it is identified as such. So it seems that Dennis McHaney was actually writing a newsletter for Robert E. Howard's, materials and things. So he brings it up here, and he actually talks about Two Against Tyre in his very first newsletter. So he ran a series of newsletters going back to 1975. So this actually gives some provenance to the booklet itself, because now I can show a connection between the publisher here and that book there, and the fact that I bought these all together, gives that. So once again, I keep them just like a comic book in a sleeve. This is a magazine size comic sleeve, and I insert them. And there were 6 of these. So this is number 2. The newsletters, and the newsletters are basically talking about, upcoming publications of Robert E. Howard's work and such, and then just other things. Some of it's like catalogs for other writers and their materials. So here's the 3rd newsletter, and this one once again is bringing up Two Against Tyre, and so Two Against Tyre's deluxe numbered edition, $3. Two Against Tyre regular edition was $2. So so still advertising and showing the photograph that was on the inside, or at least one of the photographs, one of the images that was on the inside of it. Number 4. And he says, I'm reading over here, I'm still working on typesetting for Blood of Belshazzar, and I'm currently finished with the actual typing, though it will take a few days more to piece the type and illustrations together, and then it is in the hands of the printer. I mean, we're dealing with a time when they're actually talking about doing typesetting, and then just dropping in images. I mean, just the differences between publishing today and publishing back then, are really quite amazing. So I'm not going to go into too much more detail with these. I mean, some of them have, really cool, images for their covers and their back covers here. Still running 25 cents. This is a Frazetta print on the back here. And the Hyborian Report. I will flip through this one a little bit because it goes to, some of the things I was talking about. So here we have, who the, actually, let's get the date on this first. So this is the Hyborian Report number 3, page 2. So it's not numbered elsewhere on the front, so there's probably a couple more of these that I have to get. But this is basically just a catalog of items that you can purchase that are Conan related, from a Conan belt buckle to the Mega 8-inch action figure of 1975. And this is kind of the crazy looking one with the wild hair on it. The cloth napkin of John Buscema's 1975. I mean, so just really, really cool stuff that they were advertising that were Conan related. The Hyborian Age by Mike McCoy. and basically just doing a gazette here, talking about each of the countries during the Hyborian Age. And these have been printed in many different different ways and such. So, but really cool stuff. Richard Bonk is that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. But yes, he's another Conan artist that I recall back in the early days of the Conan comic book and even Savage Sword. But just really cool stuff. And then the back here. So this is copyright 1987. Basile. I recognize that name as well. So, let me give you a better look at this. So anyway, that's pretty much it. So that's real quick look at some of my collection. And like I said, I mean, these two are clearly the gems of that collection, especially this here. So I'm going to, I'll have to find the the PDF version of this that will be public domain, and I'll be able to read the actual story without running the risk of damaging the booklet itself. So, thanks for joining. We're into another weekend, so I hope you're enjoying your weekend. I look forward to seeing you on the gaming screen sometime soon. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If there's anything that you'd like for me to take a look at that's Robert E. Howard related, if I have it in my library, I will pull it out and go over that. I am, like I say, going to go over, in blocks of booklets and novels and such. I will do videos for the various series of novels, Robert E. Howard novels, and then the different print runs and publishers of those, because I do have multiple different printers and publishers, and from various decades of printing out his materials, from the Del Rey, which were the more recent and much more comprehensive printings, to the tour books that I was originally introduced to Robert E. Howard and Conan the Barbarian. So and maybe I'll do one of those next. So thanks for joining. You have a good rest of your weekend. I look forward to seeing you on the gaming screen sometime soon. You all have a good afternoon or evening.